The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. We're really pleased to have Delegate John Bell with us this morning. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Woody. It's an honor to be here and great to be able to talk about some important issues that are affecting the Commonwealth and my district, the 87th District.
Yes. Tell us about your district in terms of its geography, diversity, where people work, things of that nature.
Absolutely. My district is one of the highest growth areas in Virginia and the United States. It's right around the Dulles Airport. It starts in Sterling and it runs just west of Route 28. Encompasses part of the communities of Brambleton, Loudoun Valley Estates, goes over to South Riding, which is where I live, and then it goes all the way west to Haymarket. So it stretches pretty good. It's 90% Loudoun County, 10% Prince William. There's 3 Prince William precincts in Haymarket. So we have a diverse group of people. It's just about a 50-50 district as far as minority versus the Caucasian race. So it's a very diverse population. I coached tennis there. And when I coached tennis, my team, we had every ethnic group represented, and food at our parties was always the best.
Great. I guess people will be very happy when the Silver Line is extended to the airport there.
I think it'll be a big help. I mean, I believe living in Loudoun County and working in places like Reston and nearby cities becomes an option for people. It's not an option today. But I am concerned about how difficult it may be to get to the Silver Line. I did a bill this year on the Greenway, and I'm working now to try to find ways where the Commonwealth could have a percentage of ownership in that to reduce the fees, because I'm concerned if it takes 45 minutes to get on the Greenway, people aren't going to go, aren't going to do that to get to the metro.
A lot of other transportation needs in your district, I take it. You mentioned Route 28. It can get really crowded.
It can. Thankfully, the road construction there and the flyovers has made that much better, but the growth is phenomenal. There are actually, between the 2012 presidential election and 2016 presidential election, there were over 9,000 additional voters in my district. So 24% growth. It's highest in Virginia. And that means there's a lot of families and a lot of needs, and transportation is probably one of the biggest ones that impacts our quality of life.
Now, to what extent is your district dependent upon the largesse of Washington, D.C., so to speak? Are there a lot of people who work for the federal government or who may be contractors with the federal government?
Absolutely. Our district, most people who live in the district don't work in the district. And that's something long-term I want to work to change, because we're the closest location to the biggest airport in the region, the Dulles Airport. But unfortunately, many businesses don't locate in Loudoun County in that area. So the majority of people in the district do work in Washington, D.C., Fairfax, Arlington, Alexandria area. And that makes commuting that much more of an issue. And every method is used, and frankly, they're all stretched. So improvements, particularly getting from a person's door to the main thoroughfare, is one of the things I've focused on a lot, working with VDOT, Loudoun County, and various developers to move projects to completion. The big focus usually is on those main thoroughfares, but half the commuting time is just getting to them. So I think that's another major issue and will continue to be going forward.
Who are some of the major private employers in your district?
Verizon is a major employer. They have a great deal of data centers, and of course AOL, which just now merged with them. Orbital Sciences is just at the edge of my district, and that's a major employer as well. And those are great jobs, high-paying jobs. And then we have a number of other small businesses, growing businesses that are out there. It's really a tremendous area. We have Carfax. We're one of their main hubs, is just at the district edge as well. So it's really a fast-growing place, and I can't ignore the Dulles Airport. United is a major hub there. That actually connects to 130,000 jobs in the whole metro area.
130,000.
That's
Wow.
right. So keeping United as a hub there and making sure that we protect the viability of Dulles Airport. Last year, the General Assembly approved $50 million of funding, $25 million per year to Dulles Airport to really make it more cost competitive. And Dulles Airport's doing a number of initiatives on their own to bring in more businesses and to more revenue to really lower the cost. So this is something that I will continue to work for because I believe it's not only a major economic driver of our region, for the United States it's important as well. We travel mainly by air in the United States, and there's only 2 airports we have that actually have room for expansion, Dulles Airport and Denver's airport. So we need to make sure that airport stays viable, not just for our region, but for the entire country.
What about community colleges or other universities in your district?
We have Northern Virginia Community Colleges in my district. We also have, just at the edge of my district, a campus from George Washington. That campus has nursing and also has cyber technology and a number of other certificate programs. This is something I'd like to expand because what we don't have right now is a 4-year degree program. The nursing program we have at George Washington is very good. U.S. News World Report ranked it as a top 10 program. But I think having a 4-year university and the research that goes with it is another economic driver. I should give the full disclosure here. I'm a George Washington graduate, so I have no problem bragging about George Washington.
You mentioned cybersecurity, and that was one of the positive things that the governor talked about in his State of the Commonwealth a few weeks ago. The fact that with certifications, some high school students now can start at an annual salary of $80,000 a year.
Yeah, absolutely. The governor in his State of the Commonwealth actually said there were 36,000 cybersecurity jobs with starting salaries of $80,000 or greater currently open. So we need to produce more people in that field, or we need to help people, perhaps if they have a degree, get a certificate and have expertise in cybersecurity and switch that area. Telos is one of the major companies that's in my area as well. And this is going to be a growing need, especially our proximity to the hub of government. So I think we need to invest very heavily in cyber. I actually had an initiative this year to add $2.5 million of funds for tax credits for investors in cybersecurity small businesses. And I think for us to play in this 50 to 100-year opportunity, we should continue to invest very heavily in this area.
And of course, your point about getting a 4-year institution in your district is very important because science, technology, engineering, math, and health are still critical areas where we can attract and sustain businesses within the Commonwealth and in your district.
Absolutely. And I think this is also to the governor's theme of diversifying Virginia's economy. This is an easy transfer for us per se because we have the skills already. And given, again, our proximity to federal government and the growing need of cyber, this is one where we can really explore private sector opportunities and expand and grow our economy.
Now, does George Washington University have a relationship with Northern Virginia Community College in terms of accepting students who maintain a certain grade point average?
They don't have a 2+2 program, if that's kind of what you're referring
Yes.
to. Yeah, they have a 2+2 program at George Mason, which is a great program. If you do 2 years at community college and you take a certain curriculum of classes and you have a GPA of a certain I think it's 3.0 or greater, then you get automatic admission to go to George Mason. Also, they have that agreement with a number of other universities, including UVA. George Washington doesn't have that agreement, but they do have a very good partnership, and they do aggressively recruit students and let them know about the opportunities that they have. I think this is one we should continue to expand because, frankly, to fill 36,000 open positions, all hands on deck are needed.
Absolutely. Are you starting to see in your high schools there a dual enrollment with the community college system?
We are, and there's a number of dual enrollment and then even open enrollment, which have been very successful. We have very good schools in my area. Both Loudoun and Prince William are excellent schools. And I think one of the neighborhood school my son graduated from, Freedom High School in Loudoun, offered 26 AP classes. So dual enrollment makes a lot of sense since we're already taking college level courses. Rock Ridge High School, which is a newer school, in my district has a very innovative open enrollment and dual enrollment program in the theater and arts, and they've worked with colleges to have that credit accepted. So anything we can do to help our children succeed and also free up schedules, because we've actually heard from a lot of children who want to take calculus and other AP courses, and they also want to take computer coding courses. Difficult to do that, and then do language requirements, which many colleges want them to have. So it's hard to find enough hours in the day to do that. So the more flexibility we offer them, I think the better off it is for everyone.
Back to the Greenway, are there still complaints that you get from people about the tolls there?
Absolutely. This is a daily thorn in the side of many people. In my district, there are 2 exits that are close to Route 28 on the eastern side, and those are where most people in my district take. To put this in perspective, we're talking about a mile of road. And
1 mile?
1 mile. And for that mile, at the peak hours of the day, the toll is $6.20 each way.
$6.20.
$6.20. A dollar of that goes to the Washington Metro Airport Authority. The other $5.20 goes to the Greenway. So if a commuter does that every month, every day, we're talking about $400 per vehicle. And there's some families that have 2 cars that have to do that way. Now, the choice is, while people say they have a choice, well, if they take Route 7, Waxpool Road, the parallel roads, 45 minutes to an hour for something that would take minutes. So if you're tight schedule when you get off from work to come home and say pick up a child from daycare, every minute you're late, it's a $5 fee. So that's why people are paying this fee. There just really aren't enough options. People want distance-based pricing, and I get that complaint very often. I met with the Greenway owners a number of times, and you know, they're willing to talk to us. They're willing to explore options, and this is something that I'd like to do. Because honestly, people, if you buy a large pizza, you pay a large pizza. You don't want to pay for a large pizza if you only want a small. And the same thing goes for the Greenway. People want to pay for what they use, and we need to find a structure that would make that possible. It's very complicated. There's a number of bonds that are on the Greenway. In 2056, the Greenway will come back to the Commonwealth for ownership, but that's too long to wait for an answer on that. We need to do something now. My predecessor, Delegate David Ramadan, had lawsuits against the Greenway and the State Corporation Commission, which ultimately he did not win. I'm trying a different tactic, and the tactic I want to do is pursue a partial buyback. The bonds that are callable, that can be bought back without penalty, then we would buy, and there would still be a toll. The toll would pay for the bond, so it wouldn't increase taxes. It wouldn't put a debt level on the Commonwealth. But the lower interest rate we could get and the ability to waive fees. Right now we charge $1 million a year for state police patrol, which is reflected in those fees. We could take that away. The lower interest rate would take a huge amount of cost down, and we could also save money by VDOT owning, taking over operations and maintenance. So as a halfway owner of that, we could, my calculations, 30–40% debt toll reduction, and also then we could pursue distance-based pricing. The road right now, for many people, it's a vital need, but very expensive. And back to the Silver Line, once that's there, the options to get to the Silver Line once it's all the way in Ashburn and at the airport is going to be the roads like the Greenway. And you know, if you look at the door-to-door commute time, once you get to the metro, I think, you know, adding 30–45 minutes to your commute, it's not going to be a desirable option.
Right.
So we have to fix this, not just from a financial perspective, but also from the perspective of just people's lives. You know, we talk about a lot of different things, but if we could just give people 15 minutes extra free time with their families, that would make a huge difference, and that's what I'm going to work on doing. Good.
Let's turn to the budget. I think a week from tomorrow, you folks should be going home. Assuming the budget has been resolved, as I understand it, the General Assembly is going to hold harmless K through 12, and there's a state employee raise built into the budget. Talk to us about the need to raise salaries for state employees.
Well, I think it's critical to do that. I mean, we entered this session with, based on the projections we made, we passed a 2-year budget last year with about a $1.2 billion shortfall where the revenues came in less. An interesting trend is going on for the last 4 to 5 months where revenues have actually, from wages have gone up, but sales revenue has gone down. And that's something I think we need to dive deep in to figure out why that's happening. The gut feeling for most people is sales are moving to the internet on businesses that don't have a bricks and mortar presence in Virginia, so we're not getting revenue from those businesses. But if we look at what that means for us, $1.2 billion means a lot of difficult choices. But I'm really happy with providing money to localities that would go to teacher raises. I would feel better about it if the localities didn't have a choice but to use it for teacher pay raises. But we are providing that relief to them, and we're also giving a raise to our Virginia State Police, and also raising the starting salary for new troopers. I did a ride-along with Virginia State Police in December. And we're losing a tremendous amount of very qualified troopers to other states or other jobs.
That's because of the salaries they're paid now?
Absolutely. The trooper I rode with, who is Officer Middleton, he was one of the first responders to the Pentagon on 9/11, and he's telling me that several of the officers he worked with just resigned to take trooper jobs in Texas for $20,000 pay raises. So we have to compete against the other localities, and they're not leaving because they don't want to work in Virginia, they don't love Virginia. It's a necessity to provide for their families. The starting salary for new troopers is only going to be $43,000 with the increase this year.
Wow.
So it's still not a high salary, particularly if you look at the risk and the harm that these officers are taking every single day. So I think it's absolutely critical that we do this, and it is a priority with regardless of the budget challenges we're facing today.
Now, you mentioned the burden on localities in terms of raising teacher salaries. Is part of that going to be funded through the lottery, which gives local school districts a little bit more flexibility in terms of how they fund those raises?
Absolutely. The percentage over the last few years of the lottery money going to education has increased, and we're hitting the 40% mark now, and trying to really push that as far as we can. When we first started the lottery, that was the intention, and needs happen, crises with budgets happen, but I'm really happy to see that money is going where it was originally intended to go, and provide additional funding for education.
How is the Virginia retirement system doing? Is it fairly secure now?
It is. We still kept our commitment last year to pay back our debt early, which saves a great deal of money by paying it back early, interest and penalties of that debt. So I'm really happy that we've kept our word. And again, to many of our public servants, they accept less pay when they work for the Commonwealth, and it's important that they know that their retirement is secure. So I'm happy that we have kept our word on that, and that's something I will continue to fight for and support.
Is the state trying to move from a defined benefit program to a 401k type of retirement plan?
We are. They're actually, well, it's complicated. There are 3 really big versions of the plan in existence now based on when you joined service. The original plan was more of a traditional pension plan, and then moved to a slight change with a contribution as well. And now there's the plan that, frankly, I fall into is a hybrid plan, and there's part of it which is a defined benefit plan, and there's a defined a contribution amount that you can make with a match. So it's a fairly complicated plan, but it's moving more in that direction. I know some people are against those kind of plans, but there are many benefits to a 401k type plan. People tend to switch jobs much more often now than they did years ago, and they can take that retirement with them when they go. They don't have to start over. Traditional pension plans, I'm a retired military officer. When I was in the military, you get a retirement if you hit 20 years, but if you leave before then, you get nothing. So sometimes life changes, and you have to move to another profession. So that's a goodness of it, but it is a very complicated plan. I would not be opposed to trying to simplify it a little bit, because the question that I get from people is, how do I know what I'm going to get from this plan? How can I calculate that? And frankly, I've gone through it with my own, and it's a struggle. So it is very complicated.
Back to the schools, especially K through 12, there's been a lot of debate and dialogue this session around school discipline and how it's imposed, who's impacted unfairly. Where does that issue stand?
Well, we actually we've had 2 bills that have received a great deal of attention in the House. My namesake, Delegate Dickey Bell, had a couple bills on this, and then there was a Senate companion bill, and we've debated this quite a bit. One was on how long a child could be suspended, reducing the number of suspension days. That's been worked with a compromise, and right now the current version is at 60 days is the maximum sentence. Unfortunately, that bill was defeated, and I think it's going to come up for another vote. But we're still working on that one. And then the other bill is related to maximum suspensions for children in 3rd grade or below, and the bill would cap it at 5 days. Frankly, we have more suspensions in Virginia than any other state.
Any other state?
Any other state. Now, that's a stat I'm not proud of. And we also, if we look at the school-to-prison pipeline, suspensions play a role in that. I actually supported these bills because, and I will continue, because I don't think we can suspend our way out of the troubles with children. And I believe in-school suspensions makes more sense than out of school. A 364-day suspension, if the court system's not involved, to me seems excessive. And also, having school suspensions carry over from one school year to the next, again, without the authorities being involved, I think that's a bit excessive. Now, I don't want to put another burden on teachers. I think this is something we can partner with teachers on, but we can't suspend our way out of trouble. And these children, I think they need help. They need to be in school. And we need to find a way to do that without sacrificing the safety of other children.
What about the use of new technology to create virtual schools, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great deal of interest in that, and I think that it can have many positive aspects. Many people who homeschool perhaps aren't calculus experts, and virtual would provide them the ability to offer that to their children. The other thing for rural schools who don't have a high number of AP classes, using virtual would allow them to offer AP curriculum at their school that's being taught at another school in Virginia. So this is something I think we can leverage, and it's a very cost effective solution for schools. So it's something I'd like to see us really expand and go forward on.
How has the local composite index worked for the schools in your district?
Last year, we actually, I was very proud of the fact that we got Loudoun County's index changed. It was about 1%, but that was $60 million. So Prince William, it tweaked a little bit in the other direction, but it was very minimal. And the cost to compete money, I did a bill for that, which gave $18 million a year to the cost to compete in each 16 and 17 years, more than made up for that. But the index is very important. A small number can make a huge difference in the amount of money the school districts are getting. This year we had tweaks as well. Neither one were favorable, but they were fairly minimal, so I don't think they'll have a big impact. But rapidly growing school districts are very challenged. In Loudoun County, we're bringing on multiple new schools every single year. In the last 5 years, Loudoun County has grown. The growth alone is greater than the population of 75% of the counties in Virginia.
Wow.
So growth is a huge issue, and having the funds to not only account for the growth, but really work on an expanding overall school system is very important.
Yeah, in terms of growth, I take it that diversity also plays a significant role. There are probably a lot of languages spoken in those school districts.
Absolutely, and that's where the cost to compete really comes to play, because you need a language instruction, language teachers. You also need, there's more special needs issues, and in higher cost areas, those are very expensive. So the cost to compete money really pays for that and addresses those needs.
Yeah, I guess on the other end of the spectrum, you have school districts in rural areas in Southside and Southwest Virginia that are suffering declining enrollments. And I think there's a formula that's been adopted, at least on the House side, to deal with that. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, there was about $9 million, and there was a formula that would provide some relief to the smaller school systems. Based on the formula, each school system would get a certain amount of money. I think it usually ranges anywhere from $100,000 to about $400,000, one or two outliers from that. But while in the big picture, that doesn't sound like huge money, it makes a big difference. Smaller school districts in particular have a very hard time meeting the needs of special needs children. They also have a hard time with language instruction, for instance, and when there's a very small group that might need the service. So then it becomes a real challenge for them to provide that. So this funding will go a long way towards helping them to meet the needs in these areas.
There's a real health crisis in the Commonwealth. I know you've been involved in it. You've had personal experience with it. And Delegate Todd Pillion has introduced some legislation dealing with that, and that's the opioid prescription addiction problem. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, this is it is a crisis. It's a crisis in Virginia. It's a crisis in America. What I've learned is it affects, people often think only the high population areas, but this affects literally every area. And some of the worst, hardest hit areas are smallest cities and counties. So it's really a Commonwealth issue. This has hit my family personally. At my son's request, we've gone public with his story. My 31-year-old son, who's an Air Force veteran, lives in Texas. He was in a car accident. He injured his neck in the accident, and he was walked away from the emergency room with a 90-day opioid prescription. He became addicted. His addiction graduated to heroin over a number of years. We found out about it last year, and he's gone through treatment, and he's in recovery now. He's actually visiting me here at the General Assembly this week, and he's doing quite well. But from what my family has learned is this can happen to anybody, and it is. And my wife and I have met many different families who are struggling with addiction. I've met families with 12-year-olds who have opioid addiction. I've met 80-year-olds who are just getting into recovery. And I'm talking every income area, every ethnic group. This is a crisis. So I was really proud to partner with Delegate Pillion on his floor speech. He spoke with my permission about my story and my son. We've had Dr. O'Bannon work with this very tirelessly. We also had our Secretary of Health, Dr. Hazel, has worked with this. I've spoken with a number of people at the Medical Society of Virginia. This year there are 15 different pieces of legislation on opioids. And some of the things that I think are badly needed and this legislation will do is, first off, restrict the amount of opioids that can be given in an emergency room. What happened to my son with this, one of the bills this year won't happen again. The maximum acute prescription is going to be 14 days with no refills. And the idea is to get someone in to see their primary care physician right away. We also are taking measures to make sure all opioid prescriptions over the next few years will transition to electronic prescriptions. So then, unfortunately, people can't go and get paper scripts and a prescription shop. And people who are addicted are doing this. And it takes a while before it hits the system. By then, they've already got the drugs. So that's a problem. We're putting money, $2.4 million towards naloxone funding. Naloxone is commonly referred to as the save shot, and it can reverse an opioid overdose. So we need to get this in the hands of our first responders across the Commonwealth. Time is critical. When an overdose occurs, if the shot is given within the first few minutes, 30 minutes or less, typically the person can be saved. But beyond that, they can't be. So in rural areas particularly, by the time responders reach the person and we're taking them to a hospital, we may not have enough time to save them. In the first week, we deployed the naloxone shot in Fauquier County. There were 2 saves. In the initial deployment in Loudoun County, and it's not 100% yet, we've already had multiple saves. So it's very valuable.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us today, Delegate John Bell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.